I think it was T.I. at one point said, Julie's the only person that could have me leave the office thanking her for not playing my record.
Julie Pilat is a radio lifer, culture connector, and builder at the edge of music and tech.
I went from working at a hip-hop station in Seattle when I was 14 to a college radio station during the peak of the grunge movement.
She created a life of service to others, and it has become a blueprint for what comes next.
I don't know where radio's going, so I started exploring these new areas.
Jimmy Iovine's music subscription service, Beats Music, has found its curator and Clear Channel veteran Julie Pilat.
I blew out my knee at Summer Jam chasing after Tyrese. Hey, good to see you.
I started Perspective to make space for process, the messy middle, because that's where identity forms. We're not chasing headlines, we're tracing the through line.
Julie, thank you so much for making the time today. You know, I started this interview series really to dig in to the process, the messy middle, in a lot of ways is what I like to call it, to better understand the work that we do and the journey to help define and continue to refine who we are over time. So I wanted to introduce you and thank you for allowing us in this beautiful space at FYI here in LA. You know, you've been a curator, a champion of people. You've supported continued creatives just all around the world, really, from Cube and Radio Days, local radio stations in Seattle, to LA and Kiss FM, Beats, Apple, Invisible Narratives, and now here at FYI. So really excited to have this conversation with you today. Thank you.
That's so awesome. Well, I'm excited to catch up, and there are a lot of great memories along the way, but I have to say what we're doing now at FYI is probably my favorite thing I've been a part of. And it'll be interesting to have this conversation, right? Because so many little elements of things that could never have been designed or planned have added up to the thing that got us to here today.
Right.
And it's a really interesting time.
Yeah, I feel like everything, you know, that good old saying of like everything happens for a reason really does stand out. And I've gone through, you know, a bit of a spiritual journey for myself as I've continued to evolve my company and my identity and really establishing who I am and who I want to continue to be for others. There's always been this element of me of like wanting to give. And maybe that's a Lebanese in me, but that is a big part of me. But I see that in you. You've always been about community. You've always been about supporting others. And I wanted to start there, because radio was kind of like really, I think, nurtured you in a lot of ways and kind of like put you in a position to really understand kind of your voice and your role. So can you talk just about your voice and how you've essentially navigated so many rooms in so many places, you know, as you started to where you are today?
That's an interesting question, and I don't know if I have the answer for it, but... FYI radio just started playing on my phone. I don't have the answer. Let's ask the AI. I think I'll go back first to what you were saying about community and helping others always being a part of my identity and who I was, because I only recently figured out the through line for this in the last couple of years. When I was growing up, it was really second nature to my family to participate. And nobody made a big deal about it. My dad would take me with him if he gave blood every 6 months. And I thought it was a cool thing, like go hang with my dad and get a cookie and juice when he did and talk to him. Didn't think twice about it. Or there'd be some sort of Seattle activation, March of Dimes, and I'd go walk with my family. That's just what our family did. And then when I got into radio was local. And so we did everything, right? If there was a fair or a festival, we were there with the local schools. If there was a nonprofit that needed support, if there was a tragedy in the news, radio would show up. So I was really used to doing that. And that only evolved when I moved to Los Angeles. I fell into volunteering in South Central at a place called Home, which changed the trajectory of my entire life. And I think a lot of people always want to help. They just don't know what to do. And so when I saw how much need there was in the community, I started playing air traffic control. You know, whether it was interns or CEOs, I would say, hey, we need help with this. And people really liked getting involved. And so not only was I known as being a champion of creatives, I became really known as a community person. And it was interesting. I was doing my own podcast, The Idea Fountain, a few years ago, and I decided to, around Veterans Day, interview my dad. My dad was drafted and in Vietnam, clearly not by choice, drafted, and drove a tank in Vietnam. And when I was growing up, never talked about it. He was really involved in veterans activities and POW and MIA. And to this day, every Memorial Day, he hosts and is on the news doing programs. But again, never really talked about it. So doing the podcast, just like we are now, I've known you forever, but we haven't had these in-depth conversations, opened the door for me to ask my dad a lot of questions. And in that podcast, I found out when he was in Vietnam, he was out in the jungle and they got ambushed. And his best friend was next to him and got killed. And he didn't have a scratch on him. And so he left Vietnam and had survivor's guilt. That if I made it out of here and my friend didn't, surely it must be for a reason. So I have to make the most of every single day. So without knowing for decades, I guess I was helping fulfill that, you know, mission,
that's deep.
But we didn't talk about it. That's just what our family did. And so, I think music, creativity, community, that really always has been the origin of my voice, unintentionally, just who I am.
And when you talk about creativity and the people that you've engaged with, I think it's such a dynamic range. It's directors and music, you know, executives. It's radio folks who are their own world. There's the creatives, the managers, the agents, the labels. You know, what made it so you were so comfortable to engage in those spaces? And I kind of partially, that now that you share this about your father, like so much of it kind of like makes sense to me. But you know, it's like the foundation that he built, that your family built for you. Like, how did you figure out how to move in those rooms and really kind of be a voice, especially as a woman in the business, which, as you know, sometimes was not, I don't want to say not allowed, but it wasn't heard as much as men's voices.
There's so much to unpack there.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I think, again, a lot of it goes to the serendipity and the path I was on unintentionally. I don't think I put that much thought into it. I don't even know if you know this story. Growing up in Seattle, I don't have any brothers and sisters, and I kind of just lost myself in music. I completely was a music freak, and not to sound 500 years old, but before there was the internet, you could really only find out about music if you drove into the city. I lived in the suburbs and got a copy of Billboard magazine. So I would save all my babysitting money, you know, get a Tower gift certificate for a birthday or something. My family would drive me in, and then I would scour the charts and read the reviews. Like, I just became obsessed with music. And then I thought I wanted to be a writer for Billboard because I really loved writing. I had never, ever even thought about being in radio. And when I was 14, living in Kent, I always feel like I need to apologize to Seattle people. A lot of people make fun of Kent.
Kent's evolved these days.
It's a whole new world. But I was growing up in Kent, and Chet Buchanan who still to this day is the morning show DJ in Vegas, KLUC. He came to my school career day. Now, what an act of generosity to come, like the DJ and music director for the biggest radio station in Seattle, to come to a middle school career day. And it was the only thing that was vaguely connected to music. So I went, and all the kids were asking him what famous people he met. And I was like, how come MTV played the song 6 weeks ago and your station played it yesterday and said it was new? And how come I hear all this new music at night, but no new songs while we're driving to school in the morning? And it was so weird. I had a softball game that day. I'll never forget. I was in head to toe gear for my game, and the bell rang, and Chet grabbed my puffy jacket, and he said, do you want to help out at the station this summer? And I was 14.
Wow.
And I was like, sure.
Definitely.
And he gave me his business card. And, you know, I think I called the request line. And back when I was 14, this is so crazy to think about. Like, I don't know how many 14-year-olds you know, but I don't even feel comfortable with them babysitting my children. My parents used to drive me from Kent to Seattle, drop me off at noon. Wow. And I would answer the request line for 4 hours. And then they'd pick me up and drive me home. And so after a year of doing that at Cube 93, the hip hop station, again, I'm 14.
Right.
The first weekend I ever worked was the weekend Tupac played Summer Jam for Cube.
My goodness.
It was the weekend that Cube used to produce all their own shows. Yeah. There would be like 17 artists on the bill.
Right, yeah.
The show was way behind schedule.
Always.
Far Side wouldn't get off the stage. Somebody pulled the plug, and the security guard from Far Side punched Chet. You know who it was?
Who?
Big Boy.
Oh, get out of here.
Big Boy.
Seriously?
Yes. He was Far Side security. I was at the station.
Shout out to Big Boy.
Answering the request line.
That's crazy.
Right? So, yeah, I did that when I was 14 and realized that radio, it wasn't exactly brain surgery.
Right.
And there was a college radio station really close to where I lived in Auburn, Green River Community College. And the next summer, I found out if you signed up for the class, you could be on the air. And so I went from working at a hip hop station in Seattle when I was 14 to a college radio station during the peak of the grunge movement, where 99% of the people only wanted to play their friends' bands or steal the CDs. And I was the only one that wanted to get in radio. So here I was, this little kid hanging out with all these adults just by like the stroke of luck.
Yeah.
So it's not like I was at home conspiring about my career. I just was putting one foot in front of the other and getting opportunities. And I think that exposed me to a lot of different kinds of people. Yeah. And I also think I had a real luxury that a lot of people don't have because of my age. Mm-hmm. You know, even if you come in interning while you're in college, you know, somebody may show you the ropes. I really believe in internships and apprenticeships. But when you're 14, you know, you're the little kid.
Right.
Everybody welcomes you in. You know, there's no competition. So everybody showed me everything.
So much love.
It was really a special time growing up at the radio station. So I don't think I had to overthink it. And yeah, like there were challenges being the only woman in the room, or even back when I was growing up in radio, I would get as many shifts as I can. And I also started doing shifts at C89.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And I mean,
you jumped around all the stations out there. Wow.
Yeah, I even have at home a letter from the school board saying that they wanted to take all girls off the radio after 8 p.m. because those were shifts traditionally manned by men.
Wow.
Right? And like, I have the letter.
That's insane. That is
it's crazy. And then it turned into a big news story locally and stuff. But I mean, that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And I think every step along the way, you just figure it out. You figure it out how to be safe.
Right.
You figure it out, if you don't feel like your voice is being heard, how to cut through the noise, right? And you just figure it out.
Yeah, you've definitely shared a lot of stuff I didn't know about your journey. But I think one of the key things that really stands out to me the most about it is, one, opportunities are never really thought about like, I'm going to move in this route and it's just going to happen. It's just, you just prepared, and when they come, you kind of just go with the flow. And I was, I interned for Tony B.
You did? Street Beat?
I
came on after Tony B for a lot of years.
And I would go into the station on Sunday morning at 7 a.m.
7 to 8 a.m.
play a show on a CD because he did not trust Next Gen and all of the automated systems at the time. So I had this I used to be called by Eddie and Tiffany to come and board op at nights because they wanted to go watch a movie or something. So I would board op for their shows. So radio did so much, and I can totally understand. I always felt like, man, you're just so comfortable just engaging with folks. And when I talk to you, when I would come and kind of chat, I know you're thinking about all right, how do I connect him? Or, you're always, thinking of ahead. And how you just explained it showed so much, answered a lot of my, not so much questions, but just gave me really clear context. And you contextualized how and why you move the way you do, because that time is so it's so formative and so important for your growth. And it just kind of speaks to character building,
Well, and also I think thinking back on that time, what a privilege to be a part of the community, because it wasn't just about the songs we were playing on the radio. I mean, my God, the Mariners.
Yeah, oh my gosh,
right?
The Sonics,
the
Mariners.
Sonics. We were owned by the Ackerleys that also owned the Sonics. Gary Payton and, Big Smooth had shows on our station. I mean, one of the biggest things we did every single year at Cube was the haunted house.
Truly.
Right? So how you figure out the marketing and the promotions and the connecting the dots. I'll never forget, I think our assistant program director, Lindsay Sipsick, or maybe it was Mike Tierney, one of them, was air checking me, reviewing the tapes for people that don't know the industry lingo. Nothing more painful than reviewing your tape every single week. But, saying, how do you take nickels and turn them into manhole covers? And it's that do-it-yourself creativity that was so much the ecosystem and the spirit of Seattle and what all the bands did. We did every single day at the radio station. I mean, for the summer, for the entire summer, Cube would have a promotion, a marketing budget of $10,000. So what would we do? We would do these incredible sticker stops every weekend, and all summer long, we would say, put a Cube 93 bumper sticker on your car, and you have a chance to win CDs, concert tickets, and $10,000. Wow. And we would take over a mall parking lot, and it was the funniest thing. There'd be 20 of us street teaming. By the way, my team at FYI, these are the origins. This is why I make you do what you do today.
Real deal. I'm telling you, in Cube at that time, not to cut you off, was truly a flagship station in the country. So it was wild in those parking lots.
Yeah, and it'd be like a Disneyland ride.
Yeah.
And you'd pull up here and you'd get a Diet Coke for free. And then you'd drive over here and get a bumper sticker on your car. Then you'd go over here and you'd get a Chupa Chew. And then all these sponsorship dollars, right? And our whole team was working. We'd be out there for 4 hours putting 500 bumper stickers on cars. Nothing is harder than trying to convince somebody to put a bumper sticker on their car. And then at the end, they would draw from a wheel or something. And they might get TLC tickets. They might get the Ghost Town DJ CD. Or they could get a can of chili. But the way we stretched $10,000 all summer long, it's those nickels into manhole covers. And now, anytime I do something, it's how can we collaborate? How can we get creative to create a network effect and make this even bigger? So when I am connecting you with people, it's not strategic or let me hook this guy up. I just get excited about stuff.
No doubt you do. And it's crazy because that time at moving from Cube to that KISS and your music directing and program directing time in LA prior to the Beats kind of move was very intriguing. So that's why I wanted to bring that up that I had mentioned before. I went to LA. I was an intern still, and I had asked Eric Powers to connect us. And I had this big idea to build this studio in LA and do movies and, you know, produce music. And it was like this like multi-million-dollar investment plan. And I was like, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to meet Julie. She's going to connect me to these people and da, 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 da. I didn't know what I was doing, right? But like, I just had this entrepreneurial spirit that I wanted to find out, you know, how can I really step in and make it big, right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember how I approached you, but you were just like so kind. And so he's like, okay, yeah, well, it doesn't really work like that, but let me connect you with this person and they'll give you some more insight. And I just remember that time because it was right before I really stepped in and had like a full-time job at the station. But it was this time I was really trying to like understand, I'm an intern, I'm trying to do this and I have these big ideas. But it was a really unique time. And to come and see you in LA at that time in KISS before you stepped into Beats was great, but I knew so little. So talk a little bit of just about that time from the Clear Channel stations, iHeart stations, moving from KISS. You saw so many artists out here. That was the hub of everybody wanted to break their records. That time into moving to Beats, like what was, I guess, talk to me about some of the moments that really stood out to you the most, that really helped you be most comfortable to step out of that position and move to Beats.
Well, first, I'm glad that worked out for you, right? Coming to visit the station. I had to pay it forward. When I was at Cube in Seattle, there were very few female DJs in the market. And the ones that were on the air, like Kathy Faulkner or Shelly Hart, they had a pretty tough delivery. You know, like their whole persona was they were hanging out with the guys.
Right.
You know, they were, and I was such a girly girl. I didn't really have a DJ mentor in Seattle. So I had a friend that went to UCLA. I used to have them tape Kiss FM for me. And there was a DJ, Whitney Allen. She also still in the business. She's a country DJ now. And I sent her one of my air checks and a fan letter asking how she got into radio and if she would listen to my tape. And this is when I was answering phones on Cube. I was on the air at KGRG. Board opping at Cube, just got my driver's license. One day I'm at home and my mom answers the phone and is like, Julie, Chet Buchanan's on the phone. And I was like, what? I go get the, phone that's plugged into the wall. I was like, hello? And he goes, why are you air checking with stations in Los Angeles? Whitney Allen got that tape. No way. Called Chet Buchanan and said, you got to put this girl on the air.
No way.
And they put me on the air that weekend. Totally wasn't deserved.
That's how you got on the air.
That's how I got on the air at Cube. So if I could pay it forward, the least I could do. When I made the jump to KISS FM in 2002, I mean, it's really unbelievable to think back that I had that opportunity and privilege and just luxury of time and experience, because it'll never happen again with technology.
Yeah, radio.
I mean, it's not that I am saying like, oh, it's sad radio's going away, because I actually have quite a bit of belief in radio, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
But no, just music consumption.
Right.
The fact that the only place you could get music was the radio. You had everybody's undivided attention,
True.
Which is the ultimate currency. And to think that I was sitting in Los Angeles the first time Pharrell walked in with Justin Timberlake.
Wow.
And for me to take Pharrell by the hand and walk around to everyone saying, like, you need to know this guy. This is the most important thing. And play NERD on KISS FM. Or the first time MIA or Childish Gambino or Mac Miller or Ariana Grande, or to have a meeting where someone says, maybe if Taylor took off the banjo, she could actually be a pop star. Like, I lived in that time.
Yeah, you did.
I mean, I was in the car where somebody said, Shakira just remixed this old Wyclef song. What do you think? Hearing Hips Don't Lie. And to think that a small group of people could have
such
access.
a large impact on the decision too, though, right?
Yeah, but also just such a privilege to be able to experienced so much creativity. I'm so lucky that I got to live that life. And it was my favorite thing. One of the biggest lessons I learned at that time, which probably was really beneficial when you came to meet with me, is you have no choice but to always tell the truth. You know,
That's real.
if the hardest rapper was in my office wanting me to play a record and I wasn't going to, I couldn't give him the okey doke.
Right.
You know,
Like,
because
well,
then
think about
I
it.
thought, I couldn't do that. I'd have to say, if I play your record before all these other stations, you're not going to look cool.
Right.
I think it was T.I. at one point said, Julie's the only person that could have me leave the office thanking her for not playing my record. And, you know, same thing with you. You come in with like, you know, all these great ambitions, which is exciting. I probably saw the creativity in you and thought of people that could mentor you, but it didn't serve you for me to say, that's a brilliant idea.
Right.
So that was one of my biggest takeaways from that time, was to always tell the truth. And I got to a point when I was at KISS in 98.7 where I loved my job. Because again, you know, I love the local of radio. I loved being able to champion artists, but a couple things had changed in radio. One, the rating system. That was a really big deal when radio went from diary to PPM. Like, the PPM, I don't know if most people know this, but this is how they decide what radio stations are popular. I kid you not. There is a company that calls 2,000 people between the ages of 6 and dead in the greater Los Angeles area and asks them to wear a 1980s beeper for 2 years.
She's
and
not lying.
The beeper detects FM frequencies. First of all, there's nobody in my phone that would take that call from a telemarketer. Second of all, who the fuck's gonna wear the beeper?
Right.
And that's who determines radio stations are popular?
It determines spend and people's jobs and the whole thing. It's
that, I think, murdered radio more than anything. And, but I didn't hate my job because social media was coming on. And there came a point with artists, I was like, you're better off if KISS FM tweets about your record, because a tweet can live forever rather than playing it once at 10 o'clock at night, where like maybe people hear it in 3 minutes, maybe they don't. So I was really interested about new technologies and how digital was changing things. And in fact, I made a really conscious decision at one point, probably 2010 or 11, to not go to South by Southwest Music anymore and start going to South by Southwest Interactive. Because every band was coming through LA anyways.
Right, you were seeing everybody anyway.
But those were the years that Instagram was launching, Twitter, back in the day, Foursquare.
Right, yeah.
You know, and I could hear from the founders. I remember seeing Elon Musk speak at South by back in the day. And I just knew I was learning so much more. So I really leaned into that, which ultimately got me the unexpected invitation to be a part of the Beats music team before it launched.
And that invitation came from Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And will.i.am.
And will.i.am. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I've heard like different stories, like, oh, you know, you were doing a thing, they flew you out and kind of like introduced us. Like, there's all kinds of things that I've heard in relation to it, but I'd love for you to just share how that took place and what essentially ended up happening with Beats.
Yeah. Well, I think the interesting part of the story is that I mentioned I liked my job.
Yeah.
But I knew things were really changing. And back in the day in radio, they would do a lot of contracts. Contracts would be 2 or 3 years.
Right.
I was at iHeart and my deal was up and they offered me like a 3-year deal. And I said, you know, I feel like I'm fairly compensated. This is where I want to stay. But can we have a conversation about where the business is going and how I might be able to participate on a bigger level? And we were trying to sort that out. And then back then, Hurricane Sandy happened in New York. And it took out the East Coast. And this contract deadline was looming.
Oh, man.
And everybody was all stressed out about it. I was not going to sign something before having a conversation. I'm really proud. It was very stressful. It was the first time I kind of stepped into my power.
Yeah.
And in the 11th hour, they said, 1 year or nothing. I mean, this may have been on email. They may not have pointed a finger and yelled at. And so I was like, fine,
It was an emoji probably.
I'll sign a year contract. Like, I wasn't trying to leave.
Right.
I didn't see another. Like, I knew my next job didn't exist yet. And so I signed that year contract. And then in January, I got a call that Jimmy Iovine wanted to meet, which was not crazy because I lived in LA.
Right.
You know, that could be, there's a new Mary J. Blige, there's a new Pussycat Dolls, Timbaland record to play. And so I got called to meet up with him at the Soho House, but I showed up and it was Jimmy Iovine, Luke Wood, Ian Rogers, and it was Dr. Dre's birthday.
Wow.
Which means it might have been February or March, but it was definitely Dr. Dre's birthday.
Yeah.
And they told me what they were planning. At the time, it was called Daisy, was the code name for Beats Music, the streaming service. I had been a really early adopter of Spotify and had the beta before it was out.
Wow.
I knew where streaming was going. And they offered me the job. And they said they wouldn't take no for an answer for me to be the head of music curation and artist development. And then I took a deep breath and said, I just signed a year contract.
Wow.
And Jimmy looked at me and he said, I'll wait.
No way.
Yeah. And
I thought he'd be like, I'll make a call.
no, it was really difficult. And
wow.
It was pretty crazy. I ended up, at the time, it didn't seem like it was competitive at all, right, to radio.
Yeah. At the time, for sure, yeah. And not to cut you off, but like, shout out to you for stepping in and checking out Spotify and really trying to understand, because at the time, you know, people would automatically
I wasn't trying to
think of it as a
understand.
competition.
Somebody called me Chester French. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Chester French.
He called and said, like, there's this new thing coming out of Sweden and all the music in the world, you can have access to it in any second. I'm like, all the world's music? I wasn't trying to understand it. I was like, give me the crack.
Excited. Yeah, okay.
You know, but anyways, yeah, so it was really complex. I went in and I said, look, I know I just signed this year contract, but I think it would serve us all if I help find my replacement, train them, and then didn't just sit around like a bump on a log till the end of the year. And some people were with it, some people weren't. Yeah. It ended up taking about 8 months for me to be able to go over to Beats and like, much respect, Ian Rogers, Scott Plagenhoff. There was a really incredible team of Beats people that started the curation process long before I ever got there. Arian Wright, Susie Cole, you know, there's a whole list.
Yeah, just an incredible team, I'm sure.
Incredible people.
A lot of people don't even know we're back behind the scenes making that.
Trent Reznor.
Yeah, Trent. Yeah, of course.
And then I walked in like August 1st, 2013, and immediately got thrown into a room full of engineers in the dog patch. And I mean, I was a radio person.
Yeah.
I had zero engineering background. I hardly knew the difference between iOS and Android, but I had to learn it quick.
Yeah.
And it was a wild time.
Man, that is a really wild time because you got there and not long after the whole Apple acquisition stuff started to take place, I think, right? It was only like a couple of years.
It was a year.
It was a year, right?
It was almost a year to the day.
So were you able to get like footing there?
Yeah.
Prior to kind of like those conversations really taking you that step? Because where you were coming from, obviously the foundation of you at 14 years old and what you talked about with your dad really has shown that was kind of that was your center. That was your core, I think, that really kind of showed your identity. For you to move in these places, what was your confidence level at? Because you're in these rooms, right? And are you just like, hey, I'm just gonna figure it out? Or did you question yourself? What was that like?
I'd say it's really similar to what's happening now with AI. Okay. Like, I'm not an engineer.
Right.
I am not a quantum physicist, but I'm a lot more passionate about those things than 99% of the population. Yeah. So again, it all goes back to telling the truth and just showing up as yourself. Yeah. In that year, you know, when you talk about identity, if you think back to how much you did or how much your life was shaped or formed in just a few years of high school.
Right.
Right? That's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. Right. That year of Beats music, what I learned from an engineering standpoint, from a partnership standpoint, we were doing major partnerships with AT&T and Target. Wow. Internationally, we were doing things with Australia and Telstra. So I went from only programming music locally to thinking about what does music look like on a national scale. If we're gonna do this with Australia, the first time, what's it gonna look like on a global scale? Right. We made a Super Bowl commercial. I was going into the presidents of every record label, which surprisingly at the time, the presidents of labels really weren't comprehending the difference between an iTunes download versus a stream. Right. You know, we were in meetings with Apple. We were doing all the artist and talent relations. That wasn't hard for me because I'd just been in LA for over 10 years.
Yeah,
so
especially
every
at that
producer,
level in LA.
every artist. It was really a fun time. And I'm so proud. I got to do a lot of music supervision at that time, partnering with the Beats marketing team, curating music for commercials. So even though it was a year to the day, memories that will last a lifetime.
Wow, that's amazing. Like it was such a rich time because that move to Apple Music, and not to like move past it quickly, but that was about 8 years of your life there at Apple, right?
Yeah, roughly? I was at Beats and Apple between 2013 to 2021.
Yeah, so 8 years of your life. Yeah, it's incredible to see because while that was going on, technology, those streaming services, everything became so competitive. There was so much saturation in the market. There were so many different artists now like to discover. So like you're managing so much when it comes to your artist development, curation at Beats to moving into Apple Music. What was your role there? And what was that experience like to go from, you were running street teams and trying to take $10,000 in a summer, right? And now you're in this world with Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre and Beats, and now you're tapped into Apple. Like, how does that shape how you see development of artists? How does it shape how you see development of relationships and teams?
It's interesting. It's probably not what you would think. One of the things that I realized after Apple is that I really thrive in startup culture.
Really?
FYI, as a startup, really there's so much passion for everything happening here. And even though I might have worked in radio that was owned by big companies, whether it was the Ackerleys or iHeart or Clear Channel, technically radio is a startup because every single day you're reimagining the programming based off of what's happening in the city. You're starting over with a small, scrappy team, fresh. Every single day, every single shift. Right. So it's that startup mentality. What are we gonna do today? Beats, it was a startup. How are we gonna figure this out? And I think it's really exciting because when you're moving in startup culture, you need to reevaluate the business plan every 90 days, right?
Yeah.
And then when we got bought by Apple, it was incredible. To be a part of a company like Apple, I'm so thankful because I feel like I got my global MBA because Apple has little music teams all over the world. Yeah. And so again, starting out local, I went to national. I had a taste of global with Australia, but all of a sudden we launched Beats One, the worldwide radio station, which is crazy to think. Anywhere in the world, you could turn on the radio. Yeah. And whether you're in Boston or Berlin, you're hearing the same song in the same moment. Yeah. I mean, it truly was a world premiere.
Right.
And we would work with those teams all over the world. So I got to know Tokyo inside out. You would be blown away how much I know about Deutschrap.
Really?
In Germany. It's just, it was really awesome. However, working at Apple was very different because it's such a big ecosystem. You end up, at least in my experience, 90% of my time was focused on communicating internally with other people at Apple, which ultimately I saw the world starting to change again with AI. About 2017, I had a friend who had left the music business, went and got her global MBA at Georgetown, and took a tech job. And she was doing a lot of things in AI, and she was speaking somewhere, and I went to go see her speak. And I'll never forget, I was in Culver City at Apple, and I needed to go to downtown LA in rush hour, and it was pouring rain. So the traffic was the worst.
Right.
And then I got there, I'm sitting in this crowd, I don't know anybody.
People don't know about rain in LA sometimes. If you're not in LA, it's not a thing.
Yeah.
Seattle people understand it. LA, they don't know.
Well, also Seattle people don't understand that there's so much oil on the streets in LA from it not raining that it's like a slip and slide.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I get there, and they start talking on this panel about AI. And I felt like every fifth word, I needed to be like, what does that mean?
Right.
And I felt really defeated. And, I felt stupid. And I was kind of bummed.
You're like out of it.
So out of my element.
Yeah.
And I remember looking around and thinking about driving down in the rain. And I thought, if I'm here right now, surely it's for a reason. Who in this room looks like somebody I might be able to hang out with on the weekend?
Right.
I'm gonna go talk to them and see what's up. And I looked around and I spotted this little skateboard looking dude. And as soon as there was a chance, I went and introduced myself. And it was Todd Terrasas, who runs the AI LA organization. And I ended up going to all these AI meetups. I joined the club and I started learning all this stuff. So I was getting a taste of how the world was changing. And at Apple, they're very focused, which is a strength.
Yeah.
But, if you're at Apple Music, you're focused on Apple Music or the piece of Apple Music you're working on.
Yeah.
They didn't need me knocking on doors in Cupertino saying, what's our AI strategy?
Right.
So, I was really ravenous and I wanted to learn. And I just really missed participating in culture.
Wow.
We were able to do that a lot at Beats.
Yeah.
You look back when Apple first bought Beats. I got to live on Beats Island for a little while. Wow. And Jimmy and Dre were doing wild things like, the commercial where Taylor Swift is running on the treadmill listening to Drake and bites it,
Right.
or... we were doing a lot of really fun things.
Yeah.
Radio shows.
The culture of
Elton
Beats
John,
is like everybody had it. Right?
Ebro. Yeah. I mean, it was just really a magical time. And then Jimmy and Dre left. And, again, I was in the middle of the biggest tech company in the world, but I didn't feel like I could collaborate because everything you do at Apple is confidential. And so I just had to make the decision to leave. Can I show this text on the thing?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
You can do whatever you want. I'm here. You can show him. He'll be able
I'll
to
show
focus.
you and let you react to it.
Okay, good. Let me see it.
I just looked down at my phone and we talked about this, but I mean, I really, really, really mean it.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to get it.
Yeah.
How much Seattle is such a core part of our identity, right? How much it really means something
100%.
Through and through. Look at this text message I just got. Okay, Daryl Pilot, that's my dad. Okay. Look at what he just texted me. Say it out loud.
Sir Mix-a-Lot is 62 today. Shout out to Mix. He's part of Zaki Rose in general.
Shout out to my dad. No.
And your dad.
Hey, Julie, how are you? Hope things are going
That
good.
is hilarious.
Press release. Sir Mix-a-Lot 62 today.
We got to get a screenshot of that and just send that to Ricardo too, just for fun.
Yeah.
That is so good.
It all boils down to what's important, and I
is.
love it so much. One of my favorite things about growing up, being a part of the Seattle music scene was, we We didn't have cell phones.
Right.
It's amazing I was allowed to go to shows. I was actually really only allowed to go to shows in Seattle. I have these friends, the Lindsays, and they're 3 sisters. And the oldest Lindsay sister is like 4 years older. And then she's got one 2 years younger and then one younger than that. So I was always the 4th wheel. I could only go if the oldest Lindsay was driving. But my parents would always say, "Where are you going?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to go see Modest Mouse." "Where are you going?" "Oh, MXPX is playing in Tacoma." "Where are you going?" "Oh, Built to Spill is at the Showbox."
Yeah.
And my parents still send me newspaper articles like all the time that there's like
That's
MXPX
amazing.
back in Bremerton.
They had
you know?
to have like a real love for music, or
Yeah.
just right.
Well,
like,
my dad has a real love. Both my parents have a love for music.
Okay.
But also, I mean, how great that they were paying attention.
Yeah,
you know?
unbelievable. Yeah, and just letting their daughter just go and discover.
Yeah.
You know, I think that is an incredible thing. That's part of, another part of our identity that we're able to establish, and it's the freedom your parents or your peers provide you.
Yeah.
Right, and to move and to discover.
Within reason, because
Yeah.
I still feel like I had a pretty tight leash.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of rules, strict
Yeah.
household. But again, to be able to do, it's like really fascinating, like to be able to do what I was able to do at Cube, to be able to do what I was able to do at KISS, to be able to do what we were able to do at Beats and Apple. And here,
Yeah.
now at FYI, working with Will,
Yeah.
it is crazy.
So that's where I want to take it next, because we talked about how much you enjoyed, how much you enjoyed the startup culture, how that felt. You didn't get that obviously in Apple as much, right? And moving outside of, I know you stepped into invisible narratives for a little bit, really testing development, but really FYI was, I think, a springboard of this new discovery of, like you said, like curiosity and stepping into the space where no safety net to some extent, right? And really just like learning as you go day by day. So how was the Will connection, bringing you into this space? Because what it is today, I've been to an event, I remember coming here like, I think probably a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's evolved since, so tell me
Every
about
day
that. Yeah.
it evolves. Well, first of all, when I left Apple, I wasn't quite sure what my next move was going to be, but there were opportunities that were percolating.
Yeah.
One of which was Invisible Narratives. Adam Goodman, that used to run Paramount and DreamWorks, partnered with Michael Bay. And Adam was a complete visionary, really recognizing that Hollywood was changing the trajectory, right? I mean, now it's crazier than ever, but that was 2021.
Right.
And he had a real passion for developing content at digital and creating fandoms and new IP, and then either transacting online or scaling it up to long form, more traditional content. I completely got that. And I saw why it would make sense. And I had 1,000 ideas.
Yeah.
However, it was a grind.
Yeah.
Because Hollywood wasn't my first language. I didn't have the relationships like I did with music.
Right.
And the industry just wasn't ready for it yet. I loved it. I wasn't looking to leave.
Right.
P.S. Shout out to Invisible Narratives. You know what they got behind and they own now?
What's that?
Skibbity Toilet.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
But in the column of Everybody Matters, check this story out. So while I was at Apple, I, again, knew my next job didn't exist yet. And I was brainstorming with my friend Alex Benayan, and I knew I didn't want to go work at Spotify. I didn't necessarily want to go to a record label. And so I wanted to think about what I wanted my next job to be. And I came up with 3 things. I wanted to be somewhere where I could champion creatives. I wanted to work with different content and media types, so not just a podcasting company.
Right.
And I wanted to be somewhere with a strong founder because I really loved working for Jimmy.
Right. Yeah, I believe.
And so I remember us sitting there and saying, who's a strong founder? I was like, I don't know. Jeff Bezos? I don't know. Richard Branson?
Right.
And somebody said, oh, I know somebody that works for Richard Branson. You should meet this guy, Jason Feltz. And so they connected me to Richard Branson's CMO. He came and he visited me at Apple. And at the time, this is 2019, he was working on a music festival and Richard Branson was about to launch a cruise line. And then 2020 hits and COVID.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess I'm just such an empathetic person.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop thinking about Jason Feltz, who I'd met like twice.
Right.
And as COVID's unfolding on the cruise ships, I was like, man, this guy, his whole job was a music festival and a cruise line. Poor guy. I wonder what's going on with him.
With COVID.
Can you believe?
Oh my God.
Like how stressful this must be. And I kept thinking about it, like all of COVID and stuff. And then I left Apple and I was at Invisible Narratives. And then in like the summer of 2022, out of nowhere, Jason Feltz comments on something on my social media. And I was like, Jason, I've been thinking about you the whole COVID. Are you okay?
Then can we check on
And
you?
let's catch up. So we get on a call and, he explained to me his journey. He's doing great. He's fine.
Great.
He wrote a book, Hollywood Virgin. Everyone should read it. But in talking about what we both went through and the transitions in our careers, he said, when's the last time you talked to will.i.am? I was like, I don't know, before COVID. He's like, you gotta go see what he's working on. And I was like, I've known Will forever. He's always working on cool things. What's different with what he's working on now versus everything else? And he said, you gotta go see it.
Yeah.
And he said, it's the people he's got around him and the product. And so I hit Will and he said, come tomorrow. And the day we sat down, it was, not only have I always appreciated what a visionary Will is, he's somebody, there's smart people and there's good people. There's not that many people that are good and smart.
Yeah.
When you find them, you want to stay close to them.
Certainly.
And I've always had a ton of respect for Will, but never really worked directly with him. And it was so fun after like spending this year working on the Hollywood side of the business where everything felt so foreign and out of reach to be able to lock back in. Like we're both
You're like back home,
children of Jimmy
kind of
Iovine.
thing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we have a rhythm, a shared language, a sense of hustle. And as a creative person that has so many ideas, my LLC is called the Idea Fountain because I get so excited about things. FYI is really amazing because it stands for Focus Your Ideas. And there's so many people when you're creative that say, when you have an idea, put that to the side, do that later. We need to focus on our strategy now. But if you're creative, that little spark, that imagination, that dream kind of kills you just to say, not now. But it's fun, that light bulb moment. I don't know about you, but when I get an idea, I'll physically jump. Like that's energy. Those light bulb moments. I can take it, put it in a project, create a little mood board and keep going back to it instead of just saying it's on hold or it's not the right time. And that really feeds my soul. And then it was pretty wild that I started in September of 2022. Will had created FYI as a creative collaboration tool. He noticed it was taking 10 tools to get one thing done. And so it's an encrypted messenger that allows you to organize and store your files into projects. But then generative AI hit the market. And so Will just went crazy, adding every single AI tool to FYI to compete and make it multimodal and also to really create something special that didn't leave the community behind, that people could have access to.
It's very intriguing to me when you talk about that conversation that you have with him. I haven't worked with him and been in the same room, in certain scenarios, but not close. There's tons of people there. But when you're in that room and you're hearing that conversation, you just left Apple, right? And you've had this storied career prior to that. And you went into Invisible Narratives and you were only there for a year. what made you feel like, maybe it was the feeling of home or whatnot, but what made you feel like, all right, this is where I want to go? Was it the music? Was it Will? Was it just that feeling that you had?
It was instant connection.
Yeah, cool.
You know, connection with somebody who was like family.
Yeah, of course.
Connection that in the entirety of my career, whether it was an emergency situation at Kiss FM where our surprise guest headliner of Wango Tango got strep throat, and so we had no surprise guest, and Will showed up and DJ'd in the 11th hour. Like, or, you know, every meeting I was in at Beats where he was such a visionary, there was a level of inspiration and trust and respect there. And it was the right product.
Yeah.
Like there was no question. And it really was a gift to be able to come back here. You know, right where we're sitting right now, like this exact spot is where Apple Music launched.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Because when, you know, we were building Beats One and Apple Music, Apple didn't have radio stations. And everything at Apple is so confidential that you couldn't just be popping up a station and have 100 new employees hanging out. But Will, since he was part of Beats, was in on the secret.
Yeah.
And he had this campus, this space, which is now the FYI campus.
Yeah.
And so we rented space. Will was our landlord. We like to call him Mr. Roper. And right here is Jimmy, Trent, Zane. They were all right here. And, you know, this is where they pushed the first button to go live and broadcast worldwide for Apple Music. And that's really powerful too. Whether people listen to Beats One or Apple Music One radio or not, you have to realize that was the first time Apple ever had a voice or an opinion.
Yeah.
And that laid the groundwork for all the services business that exists to this day.
Yeah.
Apple TV Plus, news, the curation and maps, fitness. The radio was the first one where somebody said, this is good.
Yeah. You know, I want to tap into FYI a little bit more so you can kind of share, especially with the AI piece of it. We'll play with that. But, you know, you've had this really incredible experience moving from these really unique opportunities. What was the moment where you really kind of, it's something I've kind of brought up, you know, a few times, this messy middle, right? That kind of like really, that process really continues to unpack who we are and continue to like push us to want to, I want to say redefine ourselves, but really kind of dig deeper, right? And through my spiritual journey, I came to a realization a number of years ago that you have all the answers inside of you. You got to create the space. You got to take a moment to just like silent, just be quiet and just kind of have the trust in yourself. And so obviously you built your family and yourself, you built an incredible foundation for yourself to make and move in these ways that you have. You're in a position now to try to get in front of this new tech. What is a takeaway from all of that you can give to someone who's really trying to better understand, you know, how do I find what I love? You know, the way you speak clearly shows you love what you do. And I'd like to really get that take from you, you know, as you reflect for a moment and, you know, provide a little bit of that guidance, because I know you do that with the community. What can you share that can help?
I'm going to say the weirdest thing ever, but I can't get it out of my brain, so I'm just going to tell the truth. There are no bad years. When I was at Cube, I used to have a numerologist come on my show once a month. I inherited her. It was Karen Cornell. She's Chris Cornell from Soundgarden's mom.
Wow. And
5 other children. And she used to come on my show, and can you believe this? I'd say Karen was coming on. At a hip hop station, I would stop playing like Montel Jordan.
Right.
People would fax in their birthdays, and for an hour every single month, I would do numerology with Karen.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a party trick because it's not the Psychic Friends Network. It's all math.
Right.
But in numerology, your 7 year is supposed to be your hardest year because it's very low energy and it's soul searching. And you can't soul search if you're running around town like the socialite making all these things happen. You have to, so, your immune system's low. You don't feel like going out. A lot of time to reflect. And then you shoot out of a cannon. You're in an 8 year, and that's all career, money, and power. When's your birthday, Al?
February 13th.
February 13th. I feel like I've done your numerology before. Let's do it. The hardest part to numerology is doing the math. But this is an easy one because 13 adds up to a 4, a 1 and a 3, plus 2 is a 6. So this is this year should have been more about home and family for you. Really great way, play it time, like if you're establishing your home base to like interior design, make it feel like home. It's a great year for service, really leaning into relationships and family. You're gonna go into your 7 year next year, your soul searching year, right? So when I say it's peaks and valleys, there's no bad years. A lot of people say like, oh, 7 year, oh, this is gonna be horrible. No, you're soul searching. When I was at Cube, believe it or not, I blew out my knee at Summer Jam chasing after Tyrese. I have never had an injury like that in my life. I jumped off the side of the stage trying to make sure he didn't go to his dressing room and put the stage back behind, the schedule back behind another 30, 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
And I landed, I didn't fall. I landed, I stuck it, but I shredded my ACL.
Oh my
Stayed on it all day as Bridget, Anna, Karen, all are my witness, okay? But that was the first year, that was the first time I had to slow down because I couldn't move, I couldn't walk. It was at that moment I realized my goal was to move to either New York or LA and be in a more music intensive environment. Really? I thought I would end up in New York doing A&R, but I ended up coming to KISS in LA, right? And like, again, these peaks and valleys, it got to a point at KISS where I was like, I don't know, like I was saying, like, I don't know where radio's going, but maybe it's better if KISS tweets about a record. Like, I could sense that something was not going right. So I started exploring these new areas, right? And same thing at Apple. Like, it was hard. Like, I wasn't able to connect with culture like I had my entire career. And I feel very lucky that I have a strong identity and I don't put my value just on my career, but I really miss that part of my passion. So COVID, got quiet, got the clarity, I really need to leave. So it's peaks and valleys. And
no bad year.
Just coming here in 2022, again, like the company was brand new. Generative AI didn't even exist yet. But we just put one foot in front of the other and planted seeds. And now they are blossoming. And it's really, really, really a fun place to be. It's a fun place to dream, a fun place to feel like you're on the right side of history. As there's so many big tech companies doing things quick. Being able to work with Will as he uses his voice for privacy and security. He uses his voice a lot, standing up for the human spirit and trying to make it so people aren't afraid of AI. And it's wild because where will the future go? I have no idea. We were hosting a contingency of people from this organization called Amplify Africa a few weeks ago. And I was talking about what we're doing at FYI. And this guy kind of strong-armed me and he got to the microphone and he said, I don't understand your business plan. You're not charging people. What is your business plan? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see your business in 10 years? And I looked at him and I was like, I don't know. And I mentioned 3 years ago, generative AI didn't even exist. And I said, 6 months ago, I'd see one Waymo a day in LA. Now there's 6 outside this building at this very moment. Where are any of us gonna be in 5 years? I don't know. there's really 5 possible futures flying at us at all time.
All time.
And you just have to put one foot in front of the other. But the funny thing is, after he was giving me a hard time, they had arrived in 2 Mercedes Sprinters.
Yeah.
They all left in Waymos to go to their next location.
Yeah,
So,
he's probably going to be in a Sprinter Waymo now the next time he's out here.
I don't know, just figuring it out.
Yeah, no, I love that. I appreciate you sharing so much richness. I think that really kind of obviously shares who you are, how you think, your why. I think we can certainly step away and understand your why now. Me more than ever, even after knowing you for a number of years, it really, really kind of like stands out to me. I think there's a question that I always like to leave with, and I think you kind of answered it in some way, but I really want to take it a second to think about it. What is a question we aren't asking ourselves enough? I'll give you a little context to this. I asked this already now for a couple of interviews, and I was actually surprised with the responses, especially one from our boy Eddie Francis. Shout out to Eddie. And I'd like to hear your thoughts around this because, you're on the convergence of creators, the consumers who, this product, FYI, is going to continue to evolve, right? But you've been on the consumer side, you've been on business side. You've supported nonprofits, you've really been in the community, you've adopted children, you've really been a champion of humanity in a lot of ways. So if you were to step back from all the stuff that we've talked about and just think about that, what are we not asking ourselves enough?
Okay, so I will go to the AI for this one. I have a thought, but since it is the last question, let's see. Hey, I'm hanging out with Elle and we're doing this podcast and we talked about a lot of really important things from career to self-discovery and music and Seattle history. And he just asked me for the last question, what are we not asking ourselves enough? I have a thought, but first I want to hear your thought.
Hey yo, what's up fam? That's a proper deep question, innit? When it comes to what we're not asking ourselves enough, I reckon it's about vulnerability. You know what I mean? It's are we really taking the time to be honest with ourselves about our feelings, our fears, and...
That's really interesting that you said that about vulnerability because that's not the words I was going to use, but you said, are we really being honest with ourselves about our fears, our hopes, and what we need? I was actually going to say, are we asking ourselves what we need right now? Because it's really fun to think in the future, this is where I want to go next. This is on my bucket list. This is what I want to do. I really want to meet this person. Oh, I have this idea. But in this moment today, maybe it's this moment I want a lemonade. But really today, what is going to fill my heart? Who do I need to call? Who do I touch base with? What song do I want to listen to? How am I going to spend my time with my kids? I think we need to carpe diem it and really think, what do I need right now? What do you think?
Yo, fam, I love that. You're hitting the nail on the head with that notion, It's truly about living in the here and now and understanding what our immediate needs are, just like you mentioned. It's like that classic saying, carpe diem, but with a personal twist, you feel me? Asking ourselves what we need right now is such a powerful practice. It's like taking the pulse of our lives in real time. Whether it...
Elle, what do you need right now?
What do I need right now? I feel like I need to give more access. Yeah, to give more access.
Yo, that's such a genuine thing to say, fam. Giving more access to people or opportunities. It's like spreading that love around, innit? Creating connections and pathways. It's powerful, you feel me? As for me, I reckon right now I need a moment to breathe and soak in some creativity. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's those quiet spaces where inspiration sparks the most.
Okay.
You know?
You could either keep talking to the AI or you could call and wish Sir Mix-a-Lot happy birthday. Should we try him?
Do you want to?
Let's see. Let's see if he picks
ahead,
up.
let's do it.
Yeah, it might go straight to voicemail. Let's see. By the way, Sir Mix-a-Lot was to the station at Cube what Will was to the Black Eyed Peas at Kiss.
Yeah.
House band.
Well,
I don't know if he's going to pick up.
that is funny. If he does, it's going to be so common.
Straight to voicemail. But at least we'll leave him a voicemail.
Yeah.
The
for
people
sure.
that matter
Yeah, we'll
the
do
most.
like yeah. Come on, Mix.
Come
on,
on.
Ant. Stop playing.
Nope.
No,
Yep.
he's not even giving us the.
But at least we tried.
Yeah, we did. Shout out to Mix.
Happy birthday, Mix.
Happy
From me and my dad.
Yeah, and so your answer to that question is.
What do I need right now?
What do you? Yeah, no. What do we? What are we not asking ourselves?
It's what the question is. What do you need right now?
Okay. What do you need right
Like
now? That's
in
your
the
answer.
present,
Okay.
what is going to make today
Okay, got
be a day you'll remember for the rest of your life?
Got it.
And that's what, like,
Yeah.
this is so weird. But like last Wednesday after work at 7:00 at night on a summer night, I went fishing with the kids.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fish. We didn't know what we were doing. We caught like a fish for a half a second.
Yeah.
But I'll remember sitting out there in Playa del Rey as the sun went down with my kids for the rest of my life instead of feeling behind. You need to compartmentalize things and really make each moment matter.
Yeah. I love that. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing, so much of your story and hopefully it supports others and kind of how they think about what the things that they want to do and how they want to push themselves. So thank you for your time today.
I really think anything is possible right now. It's a whole new era and, we need the good people, we need the smart people, and we all got to work together. So thanks for coming and hanging out at FYI.
Of course. Appreciate it.
Thanks to the whole crew for helping tape this. Thanks, Frankie.
Yeah.